Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today's question comes to us from the True Stories collection, as in, it actually happened at an event I was actually judging. Amy uses Possession Engine to steal Nick's grizzly bears. Later, Nick plays Flood the Engine against Possession Engine. Does Nick get his bear back? Can grizzly bears attack and block now? To answer this question, we'll need to understand a little bit about how the ability on Possession Engine works. Other than the Crew 3, everything on Possession Engine is part of one big triggered ability. This ability triggers when Possession Engine enters, and it sets up some continuous effects on the targeted creature as it resolves. One of those continuous effects is a control changing effect, and one of them changes the rules of the game, so that creature cannot attack or block. Both continuous effects last as long as you control Possession Engine. Now that's an important thing to notice. Once Possession Engine's triggered ability has resolved and set those continuous effects up, it doesn't matter if Possession Engine loses its abilities later. The continuous effects will last as long as you control Possession Engine. Now this works differently from continuous effects from static abilities. Unlike triggered abilities that resolve only once and therefore have only one chance to affect the game can look at static abilities continuously since they're written as statements that are simply true. Consider if Possession Engine was worded somewhat differently. In this case, the continuous effects would result from a static ability on Possession Engine. If that static ability goes away, then the continuous effects would end. Now, here's another somewhat related question. What if you use Possession Engine to steal something and that something stops being a creature later on? The most common way for this to happen would be to steal something like another vehicle or a manland, but the answer I'll discuss is valid for any time this happens. Even though the control changing effect set up by Possession Engine's ability refers to the permanent it affects as a creature, the set of permanents that continuous effect applies to is determined only once, when that effect is set up as part of the Possession Engine's ability resolving. Changing the card types of the thing you stole later on will do absolutely nothing. The continuous effect that says the affected permanent can't attack or block is a little bit more interesting. Technically, since this ability functions by changing the rules of the game, it can apply to permanents that were not creatures when that effect was set up, if it was possible to set this ability up against a non-creature permanent. In the same vein, only creatures can attack or block, so it's a moot point wondering whether this part of the effect still applies, even if the permanent stops being a creature. Regarding the question of how the differently worded Possession Engine I introduced earlier with static abilities would apply to permanents that stopped being a creature, well, that answer depends sensitively on the actual wording of the card. It would be extremely unlikely for Wizards of the Coast to template such an effect this way rather than using the normal wording for such effects, i.e. the template actually featured on Possession Engine. The only reason I could see for them to do this would be if they wanted to manipulate what the answer to a question like this would be. So I imagine if we ever did see a card like this, the exact wording would be very important. And that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily ruling. Until then, I hope you have a great day.